Blacks in Technology.
Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology.
Welcome, everybody, to the 56th episode of the Blacks in Technology Tech Talk podcast. I'm your host, along with my colleague, Ayori Selassie. I'm Greg Greenlee. Tonight, we're going to get into, we've got a special guest here, Charles Nwatu. But before we get into that, let's get into a little bit of housekeeping. blacksintechnology.net, that's our website. You can check us out at www.blacksintechnology.net. Also, check us out on Twitter. We are at Black in Technology, and that's BLKINTECHNOLOGY. Check us out on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Blacks in Technology. There's also a LinkedIn group under Blacks in Technology. And if you are listening to the show and you want to tweet us some questions for our guests, then tweet using the hashtag BitTechTalk. Okay, so that's BITTECHTALK. So that's hashtag BitTechTalk. So who is Blacks in Technology? We are a tech-focused community. We're stopping the divide by establishing a blueprint of world-class technical excellence and innovation by providing resource guidance and access to technical conferences to our members who are of the African diaspora. Our goal is to enable our members the opportunity to surpass current standards of excellence and establish new standards of global innovation via mind sharing and collaboration efforts. BIT as a community is about to embark a new era as our team focuses on forming new partnerships and opportunities to assist you with your continued professional growth and development. So if you want to partner with us, you can send us an email at partnerships@blacksintechnology.net. That's partnerships@blacksintechnology.net. If you have any general inquiries, you can send us an email at info@blacksintechnology.net. And if you have any ideas for a podcast or you have somebody that you think should be featured on one of our Big Tech Talk podcasts, email us at talk@blacksintechnology.net. What else do we have to get into? Do you have any announcements, Ayori?
Only that the listeners, get on the edge of your seat because we're about to have an awesome podcast with our special guest today. That's the only announcement for today.
Yeah, this is like the rushed edition. We kind of threw this together real quick because we wanted to get this person on because he has a fabulous background and he's done some fabulous things over the weekend with Black Girls Code, and we really wanted to get that message out. So go ahead, Oriol. I'll let you introduce him.
So hot off the presses, I participated in the Black Girls Code hackathon over this weekend, and was surprised to bump into Charles, who is a security professional at LinkedIn, very incredible person. We had been talking over Twitter previously around the topic of how to get your kids involved in STEM and technology and engineering. And so was really glad to bump into him there. And we just had to have him on. He's going to be on talking about his experience with Black Girls Code, raising his kids in technology, and also giving you guys a bit of a deep dive into what it's like to work in the IT security field and why you should be interested in that. So yeah, that's the introduction.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you.
No problem. So we're going to jump right into questions. If you have any questions, go ahead and like I said. That sounds like. Okay. If you have any questions for us, go ahead. Hashtag Big Tech Talk. But Charles, go ahead and give us your background. This is always like the common first question to everybody. So go ahead and give us your background in technology. How did you get started?
Well, so the reason why I got started in technology was when I was 8 years old, my dad bought me a Radio Shack Tandy computer. And I was sort of amazed by this big box of green text in front of me and trying to understand, what does this machine do? It's so interesting, how does it work, and can I take it apart and put it back together again? So that's where I got my initial thirst for like the information technology and computers in general. And over the years, it's just sort of, blossomed into, attended university at Penn State and majored in information sciences and technology. Had a chance to win a DoD Information Assurance Scholarship, which allowed me to do research in information security topics that affected the DoD community, and that was very, very interesting. Then after that, I had a chance to work in the DoD space with regards to doing information security at like host level detection and intrusion detection at the host. And from there, I sort of just moved around into that space of intrusion detection prevention, malware analysis, protecting endpoint systems from the maliciousness that exists on the internet. And to this date, I find like my biggest passion to be exposing people to the ills that exist out on the internet. It's a great resource, but there are some places that can lead you into danger, lead you into potential compromise of your system, viruses, and so forth. So that's where I'm at right now in my career. So
excellent. Yeah, it's always fascinating. Just the changing environment of information security. I have a couple of buddies that I know that are. One guy actually works for Facebook. He does I think the same thing you do. He does malware analysis for Facebook. And then a couple other guys are more they're InfoSec consultants. Part of the two guys I'm referring to was that Charles Tyndale and Caleb Charles. That's all. You guys are all Charleses. That's Charles Tyndale and then Caleb Charles. Two guys that are in the information, but the landscape of IT security is always changing every day, and you definitely have to keep up on everything that's current, because they'll go and they'll release these 0 days, and you have to kind of react and pretty much try to protect your network. So
yeah, that's really huge. I mean, and security, the conversation of security just pops up all over the place, and we're going to definitely dig a little bit deeper into that as we go into the show. But I know I have to have conversations around IT security all the time, from the standpoint of mobile application development, data, residency, and all sorts of other complicated concepts. So for the folks who are listening in, if you're listening in for the first time, you definitely want to stick around through to the end, because these are topics that will really help to propel you throughout your career and enable you to have conversations with other folks about the topic of security, and to continue exploration and discovery in that topic and help you out. But with that being said, we definitely want to segue into this topic of hackathons. We've talked about hackathons on the Big Tech Talk before. We had Brian Clark join us, who, just to give an update on Brian, since we had him on the show, he went on to win the launch hackathon, and he won something around $45,000 to develop his company View, which is a company to provide mobile analytics for your mobile app. So check out Brian Clark. Go to his website, Get View, and check that out. But on the topic of hackathons, tell us, Charles, about this hackathon you attended over the weekend for Black Growth Code. I know you were volunteering there. Tell us about why you got involved and what your experience was like. So
I have a 9-year-old girl and a 4-year-old boy, and so it's as parents, it's up to us to sort of provide our children the insight as to what's out there in the world. And when I migrated from the East Coast to the West Coast, I wanted to maintain some type of outreach and community involvement, and I noticed Black Growth Code, and I was actually emailing Kimberly and saying, how can I get involved? What are things that I can do? And she said, well, just come and volunteer. So my first hackathon volunteer was last year at the end of the year. They had something in San Francisco. And then this past weekend, they had something at the Impact Hub of Oakland. where over 2 days we had roughly about 150 middle school to high school young females come in and develop applications that centered around the topic of love and respect in terms of relationships. What does it mean from the young generation's point of view to have a healthy relationship? And what are some of the tools and apps that they could develop to solve some of the problems that they or their peers are experiencing when it comes to relationships and having healthy relationships and being able to express the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to their relationships. So it was amazing to see all these girls come in and work together in teams of 5 between the age groups of middle-aged girls to high school girls, and really just come together, sort of throw out ideas and walk through the flow charting of an application and making it work from a mobile app development or the storyboarding or wireframing the whole process. And it just really moved me to sort of work with these groups of girls and just say, this is how I would do it, or this is what you should look into. And when you give them that little nugget, they just run and multiply it tenfold, and you're like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, so that's great. I mean, I know I was definitely really impressed, and just specifically sort of around that theme and taking this concept of the applications that we use every day, the technology that we use every day, and applying it to help us in our life in a sensitive topic around our relationships. I just thought that was a really powerful mission for this event.
And just to add on to that, so one of the takeaways that I saw when they were doing the final pitch presentations, and also I'd like to thank Appery.io for the platform for using that we used to build the mobile app. It was an awesome experience for the girls to go to the Appery.io platform. Was that a lot of the products that they developed or the applications that they developed centered around peer review and peer advice. Like, it was so amazing to see, even from the middle school to the high school group, that they wanted a place where they felt comfortable to share their experiences with one another and possibly have the ability to receive some type of feedback. Like, it was impressive to see that they seek to provide feedback and assessment of their friends. Like, it was very interesting to see that. That was one of the major things that, as adults in the room, we were looking at each other saying, wow, that's interesting. Like, these kids want to express themselves with themselves, like peer review, advice by peers, for peers, essentially. And I thought that was very interesting that they're seeking to have that ecosystem to perform just that action.
Yeah, and I mean, as folks are sharing, more and more of their data sort of on these different systems, I know a lot of what they mentioned was safety, the ability to share their experiences or ask for advice in a safe environment. The girls mentioned that a lot. And I just thought that was really, poignant to realize that when our kids are developing and they're using technology, they are going to seek support, but they have different definitions of what safe means than we might have. And to have them being in the driver's seat of designing the technology to provide the kind of safety that they want is, to me, is just mind-blowing.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fantastic. So, hey Charles, so is your daughter, and she's how old again? 9 years old?
She's 9 years old. Yeah, she will be 9 in next month. So she wants to be 9 now. So.
So does she have a passion or interest in technology? Or is this something? What's the story behind that?
So she sees me part of like you mentioned earlier, Greg. Being in the information security world, it's research, staying on top of your craft and making sure you're aware of what's going on. So she sees me all the time, like reading blog posts and on Reddit and doing a little scripting here and there. And then one day she just asked me, Daddy, what is this? And I sat down with her and we did the first program, I think, was like Ruby for Kids. And we all we did was make a box. Like we told the instructions to draw a box. And I told her to, if you were to write the instructions by hand to tell a person to walk in a box shape, how would you do that? And to just get her thinking that all a computer language is just a set of instructions, and it's the simplest form, that you have to explicitly tell it to do this thing. And she was like, oh, that's interesting. So I can make it do this, and I can make it do that. And then we started branching out into Scratch. And Scratch was where it really took off for her, where she's like, oh, this is interesting, Daddy. So after that, it was just, every time she saw me on my computer, it was like, Daddy, I want to do something like this. And I want to do something like this. So I'm happy that there's a venue like Black Girls Code to sort of bring other girls in the same passion and just say, okay, hey, have at it. You guys work together and figure things out.
Nice. And how was this something that was?
I was going to say, for our listeners who aren't familiar with Scratch is a programming language and platform that was developed by MIT that provides a visual interface for development as well as being able to see the programmatic logic and syntax behind the scenes. And so a lot of kids are starting their experiences coding with Scratch. And it's like all the parents, all the computer science parents have their kids doing it. It's like the hot thing.
We also, and just to mention this, I mean, we have a partnership with O'Reilly Media, and they produce, technical conferences, technology, videos, and training, and also books, technology books. So we need to think about, because, they sent me a box full of books, a variety of books about programming, learning how to program with Scratch, Raspberry, programming with the Raspberry Pi, some Raspberry Pi hacks, Python for kids, Raspberry Pi cookbook. I'm looking at these right now, book on Arduino. So we need to come up with some type of contest or, something to give away these books, because I think they'll be definitely beneficial to the community. So maybe we need to think about that as the podcast goes on.
And our listeners, if you guys have suggestions on, great ways that we can run these contests and get these giveaways out there, let us know. We're not that creative. We just do podcasts.
Exactly.
So what I would like to also say is another platform, since we're all into the explosion of the coding stuff, is Lightbot. Lightbot was another one that my daughter started playing on. Just very simple logic-based things. How do you make this robot move 4 squares and then take a left? Things like that. And she really, really enjoyed it, to the point where my 3-year-old son is starting to play on the tablet and just walk through the motions of trying to mimic his big sister. So that's another platform that we had success with in our house.
Nice.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So for our listeners, I think we kind of touched on this a little bit. The theme of the hackathon was love and respect, to focus on helping girls develop apps to promote healthy relationships. So what was your impression of the theme for this hackathon? I mean, what was your, did you like the theme? Did you feel like this was a great thing to kind of kick off, especially, with something to create an application or a mobile app around?
So the one thing I do have to take away from my weekend there was I do feel older now. Talking with these middle school and high school young ladies, it's obviously things have changed, and I'm just like, oh wow, it's amazing how much has changed in just over a decade when it comes to just being in school and the day-to-day things of being in school. So I think the topic was appropriate. The reason why my daughter was there really was she just wanted to shadow me. And then they were like, well, just let her join a group. So she was one of the youngest participants there. And it was just interesting that the idea of being in a healthy, non-bullying type of friendship, or in some girls' cases, relationships, I think it's overall important to have that type of community so they can talk about this with their peers. I thought the topic was spot on, perfect, because I didn't understand the scope of this problem, especially with having a young girl that yes, this is still an issue that sort of needs to be resolved, and it targets many girls, not just African American girls, but across the spectrum. So it's a universal theme, which I thought was well played by the organization.
That's awesome. And I remember I took a picture and tweeted it of you, standing with a couple other fathers, and I just gotta highlight how committed these fathers were to their daughters, because they came and not only they didn't just drop their daughters off at this event, like, all right, you're going to code camp, kids, and leave. Like, these fathers brought their daughters, and then they volunteered the entire weekend at this event. And one of them drove all the way up from L.A. to be there. Another one, reached out to me proactively and was like, the tickets are sold out. I need to make sure my daughter is in this event, but, like, how can we make sure this happens? And I didn't even know the guy. And so it was just amazing, the level of dedication that these particular fathers had. And I remember just seeing this vision of you, giving, one of the other guys, handshake, and just all three of you guys just shaking each other's hands. And it was just a natural thing. And what was that like for you? I mean, that experience connecting with these other fathers who were there, also supporting their daughters, like, talk to us about that.
So, like I said, as parents, we just want the best for our kids no matter what. I think that's just a universal trait. And just, and I actually tweeted this afterwards. I thank Black Girls Code for giving me a platform for which my daughter and I can spend quality time together and doing something that, I have a core passion about, but that also exposes her to this whole other realm. And then having other fathers, we all bounce war stories around about raising girls, and we want them to have the confidence in themselves to be able to use their voices and have the courage to do the things that they feel is just and correct. So just being able to share those war stories with other fathers and know that, the struggle that I'm facing is shared by others is comforting, first off, and then it makes me feel like, okay, I haven't messed up yet. And like I said, being with the middle school and high school girls, I told my wife, I said, well, I at least know what's going to happen in the next 3 years once she gets into this preteen stage, and it sort of scares me. I'm not going to lie, but it's a beautiful experience to sort of sit back and watch the growth of a young woman in front of your eyes. And I was just blessed to be able to be with other fathers that shared that same passion, and we had a platform where we could actually talk and not feel like we couldn't connect with our daughters in a special way. So I thought that was very, very awesome, and it was just a great experience.
That's excellent.
Here for folks out there, that's Charles Nwatu talking about the experience he had connecting with other fathers who have brought their girls to the Black Girls Code Love and Respect Hackathon. That is not the kind of conversation we hear every day, especially not on our regular media channels. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it, and especially, not the typical image that's reflected of fathers of African descent. And I just think it's so powerful. And I'm so glad, Greg, that, you started this platform so that we can bring incredible people, everyday heroes like Charles on and have them share their stories. I just think it's just ridiculously powerful. I'm blown away.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, just to follow up on what you just said, I mean, that's what BIT is, all about. It's been what it's been all about since the beginning, changing the perception, whether or not it's within tech or outside of tech. But it's funny because I was, and not to get away from our guest and everything, but I was just thinking about today. I was working out actually before we had the podcast, and I was just thinking about just some of the negative images and everything that we have out there about our black men. And it's funny because I was thinking all the within my inner circle, all my friends and all the black guys that I know and the black women that I know are educated or have have children and take care of their children, and it's so not what is being put out there. It's so not what people perceive us to be, and it's just a shame that that's not what the norm is as far as what people think within society. And so I think things like Black Girls Code, platforms like Blacks in Technology is great for changing that whole perception.
No, I agree. It's awesome to have that platform for all of us to sort of show that there are multifacets to how the African American community is, and that African American males do represent a larger perspective as to the things that we can do and provide for our families and our community. So I just try to play my part and sort of share that role with others, and just keep on preaching and going down that path.
And so this will be the last question I'll ask about that experience before we move on to get deeper into security. But having had that experience with your daughter, what do you think you're going to take away from that experience in raising your son, who's 4 years old, right?
Yeah. So that was one of the, I guess, the weird feelings I had, because it's like, so there's been a major push in the last couple of years for the overall growth of women in STEM initiatives. And but even within that, when I was going to school in the early 2000s, even just having still African American males or underrepresented communities in the STEM field is still a challenge. I just don't want that to get lost in the initiatives that are centered around some of the women-led focus initiatives and STEM advancements. So for my son, it's also trying to find that same type of environment where he can participate and work with other young Black boys to sort of build that nurture for STEM-related thing. Luckily, he lives in a household where his father is a computer scientist person, his mother's a chemist. So sciences are always around in our house. But it's having that platform to share with others, and I'm all about volunteering my time amongst the community. I want to make sure that he has that same experience that my daughter has, because so far to date, she's already gone to 2 hackathons, and she's already telling me, Daddy, when's the next one? Because I want to win next time. So she's got the taste, the hunger for what that means, and now she's out for blood or something. So I want to be able to replicate those experiences for him, and I'm trying to figure out how to do that and balance that amongst my 2 kids.
Yeah, that's powerful, and I think that speaks a little bit to that initiative and it's become a controversial initiative, but that initiative that President Obama started called My Brother's Keeper, where some folks, and the initiative was specifically to target young men of color, young Black men, and or men of African descent. And but some people criticize it to say that, men are getting too much attention. Like, again, the patriarchy is coming back and putting all this attention on men. And what about our girls? And I'm of the nature to say that we need to make sure that we are supporting both genders, giving them all the support that they need. The support that they need in some cases are going to be similar, and in some cases it's going to be different. I see young men volunteering at Black Girls Code and being mentors. My nephew, he's like 16 years old, and he was there the entire weekend volunteering, supporting. And he doesn't have a computer science background. He was just making sure that the event went well. And then we have, young women who volunteered at the Hackathon for Black Male Achievement. And so what I want to make sure that we are able to do is move away from this kind of separate conversation about, men versus women or girls versus boys, and just continue to support our community as much as we can and celebrate the success that we have without getting petty on this topic.
Definitely, I definitely agree. So let's move into your career in information security, and let's talk a little bit about that. I guess one of my first question is about that is why would somebody be interested in going into information security field?
So I would say that, the information security space is extremely big. There's so many things that you can do. There's policy guidance that you can develop for an organization. There's the ability to look at applications, and fundamentally there's people that want to break things apart and understand what happens if I put this in this form field versus that. Right? There's very inquisitive people that sort of look in the world in that mindset. And then on top of that, it's a fun field. If you like to research stuff, it's a very dynamic field. It changes every day. It's not static. And if you like to be in a fast-paced, dynamic world, information security is one of those places. And it helps that the industry at large, it's a very well-funded industry in terms of the talent and the competitiveness to find the right talent. So overall, if it's something that you're interested in, is a wise career move, as long as you have the passion to sort of follow through with it.
Gotcha. I'll tell you one of the things that's always interested me and I'm not an in-depth security person. I do systems administration as my day job, and so I do have to deal with security, but I'm not on the level of a security expert. But what I've always found fascinating about security is just the number of different, realms that kind of covers within technology. So, security guys, they usually know about networking. They usually know about network protocols. They usually know some programming. So they know, operating systems. They usually know about the whole gamut of technology. And I always thought, that was, pretty fantastic that, you have this one area of technology that kind of encompasses all these other areas within it.
Yeah, I usually describe it more like, I don't know how many people are baseball fans, but in baseball they always have like that utility player. You can stick them out in left center or shortstop or first base.
Yeah.
You get to dabble in a little bit of everything, and you get the holistic picture of how things are supposed to integrate and work with. Even all the way down from the system administrator level all the way up to the network architecture and design. It's all components that are related to each other.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, and I know we talked about how you got into tech, but how did you actually get interested in security? What was it that said, hey, I want to get, I don't just want to code or I just want to do networking stuff. How did you come upon that decision?
So it was probably be my junior year of college, and someone came to me and said, hey, we have this program. It will be the first at our school at the time at Penn State to sort of implement. And I said, okay, well, I'll work with the professor to sort of draft up the framework for our college. And so I started working on it, like reading all the elements of the security program. I said, wow, this stuff is pretty interesting. So I told myself, okay, let's go ahead and apply. And so I applied and I sort of received the award. And then I just started hunkering down and just trying to learn as much as I can. And then I figured out what area of that sort of interests me the most out of all the different realms within information security. And I realized that I really love like host-based intrusion detection stuff, and also data analysis, like the aggregate data of how an enterprise or network functions. Like every corporate laptop has a function, and they all operate in some degree to this rhythm. Like the network is like an organism, and you can sort of detect changes of how the network responds and how users interact with the systems. So I look at it almost like a dance. All the components are used together to build this symphony, and it's like really awesome. So it just intrigued me a lot.
I've never actually heard it described like that. I mean, what type of team we're getting into now? We're getting into what sounds more like you're kind of baselining what goes on in the network to be able to determine, and that's pretty much what some of these host-based intrusion detections and network intrusion detection software does. So what type of tools are you using in order to kind of analyze and see that?
So a lot of this stuff is I use is sort of open source stuff that I do in my personal training. So like in my environment, I like to use Security Onion as a virtual machine platform that has a whole bunch of network security monitoring tools built in. It's a Linux distro that's available. I can't remember the website off the top of my head, but Security Onion is the name of the distribution.
Gotcha.
And there's so many tools in there, and there's so many great online references and tutorials to start from there. Bro IDS is another open source platform that I've used lightly in terms of my home security network. Professionally, it's a mix of commercial off-the-shelf solutions. I try to stay away from being like a vendor, just choosing particular vendors, but most of them all have the same capabilities in terms of monitoring various, folders and directories on various OS platforms. Of course, Windows being the dominant platform in most enterprises, and then behind that, most likely probably Mac and Linux in that space. So for me, I'm all about the open source stuff and using it to figure out how things work and how to inspect data and how to do the analysis. So that's where I go for there. And some of them, like memory analysis volatility, is one of those tools that is high on my list of doing memory analysis for systems that have been compromised, like in incident response type of fashion. So there's a wealth of open source tools out there for people to just go and research, and the community is really great about writing tutorials and giving example data sets to sort of practice on.
Nice. So
it's great to get people started as well, and a place for them to sort of dig into. I want to ask just sort of about the change that's happened in the perception around IT security. In the past, people didn't really think about it very much. They didn't value it a ton, and they didn't really want to spend a bunch of money on it. They thought of it as a money pit. But how do you see the recent sort of security issues, things like the Heartbleed bug and OpenSSL and the Target incident? How have those recent incidents change the security field, and what opportunity does it create for people looking to develop their career in that space?
So I would say that, traditionally, the perception has always been that information security is a reactive community. We have to have an event that happens before the funding or dollars are released to address the security concerns. It's easier to treat the symptom sometimes than trying to holistically understand what's going on. But now, as there's been actually today, like PF Chang's had a credit card data breach. So there's, breaches are starting to become like the de facto standard. As okay, when that happens, now we are going to invest all of these capabilities of tooling and professional services to sort of get our networks and our laptops, our endpoints, our servers, our infrastructure more secure, whatever that more secure end state is. So I do see that there's a change. We just have to make sure that the change is actually going to provide a new way of thinking inside corporations about how to best utilize security products and security solutions, whether it be off-the-shelf products or custom homegrown solutions. So I do see a change there, and I'm excited to sort of see companies saying, okay, we value security. It's a pillar of our operations in order for us to have a good branding recognition across the public space.
Gotcha.
And just a follow-up question on that one, because a lot of things that we're seeing that hit the news in terms of threats, whether it's denial of service attacks that affected business across whatever millions of customers.
Hey, real quick. Hey, Charles.
Yes.
Do you have your mic kind of close to? Cause we're getting a lot of breathing. It's kind of muffling some of what we're saying. So.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's better.
No problem.
for the I'm trying to get at what's more important. Is it more important for you to be aware of the threats around security and the hackers and the people that are trying to do all the bad stuff, or is it more important to focus on closing your vulnerabilities and looking at it from that perspective? Like, what would you say? Is one right or the other right?
So I don't think there's a right or wrong approach. Sometimes it also depends on the maturity of the organization and the security program that they have in place. And it may also impact the staffing that they also have in place, also to address their risk management or their information security posture. So I look at it more as what fits the organization. Some organizations have the luxury of just opening up the wallet and basically doing research, developing custom solutions to address their needs. And some companies don't have that luxury and have to really be targeted as to what exposure are they willing to accept and what risk can they close out, whether it be through tooling or configuration changes or professional services assistance. I always say, from system administration, is to me is one of the biggest things, because there's some basic things that just at a configuration level from an end user perspective that can be done. That just makes it harder. I understand that it's not a silver bullet. It's going to solve everything, but the goal that I usually go in with is make it that much more challenging, so that you give yourself the opportunity to detect the anomalies that are going on in your systems or network.
Great answer.
Since we're talking about kind of the enterprise, and we're talking about personal users, what are some of the things that from a personal user, maybe somebody who just has a network at home, what are some tools that someone at home can use to be more, and I know, and I'm more or less talking about something more host based, because everybody knows you go get a wireless router, change the default password on your wireless router, things like that. They pretty much come pretty secure out of the box beyond just the regular admin password. But what are some tools that people might not know about that they can use at home to kind of protect their systems?
So just to reiterate, I would say, follow the instructions on changing the password, because you'd be surprised how many people still just leave the default password because it's easy to remember. So I was on the Windows side, I would just focus on finding an AV solution, antivirus solution, that's sufficient. Like, as I try to stay away from identifying particular vendors, but any AV to at least get that traditional coverage of stuff. Make sure that you're not canceling your Windows updates and you're actually performing the Windows updates, because they are important. And I would also include Adobe in terms of Reader, Flash, the whole Adobe suite. Make sure you're performing those upgrades and installations from the Adobe website. Don't click on links that are not verified links or may look like Adobe. Just use the native application to perform the updates. So I really try to keep it simple, like how I tell my parents. I just want to, don't break anything. Just, do what you need to do. Get off the internet. Do your updates. Make sure you're protected with some type of antivirus solution, and sort of work from there.
Nice. And if all fails, just install Linux, right?
Well, that's what I use. So,
what's funny is
just through my Mac.
And I got one of those too.
What's funny is my mom, I actually gave her a couple of systems probably within the past year or so. But before that, she was using strictly Windows, and I was getting calls from her like all the time. I'm just like, this is getting ridiculous. My brother actually, still lives with her and everything, and I was just like, what come on, what are you guys doing? What are you guys clicking on over here? So it seemed like every couple of weeks or every month I was over there, fixing something or trying to clean their computer. And so I just, recently I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to throw Ubuntu on here. It's all you use is the internet. I'll show you how to get to, I'll show you how to get to the internet using Chrome, and that's it. And so there's no need for you to have to call me anymore about spyware, about any of that stuff.
I agree. I'm the resident in the family. Hey, something is wrong. Go call Charles from both sides of my family. So I know that pain of, hey, something happened. The mouse was moving by itself. What did I do? Those types of things. And it's just like, oh my gosh. So.
Yeah, you ever get those family members who say they didn't do anything, and then you start looking a little bit deeper?
Yeah. It just happened that way. I didn't do anything. Yeah.
Yeah, some of that can be pretty embarrassing, especially when it's like a family member that's a little bit older, and you're just like, yeah. So what are you doing looking at this?
Yeah, what are you doing going over here? Yeah, trust me, I'm very familiar with those conversations.
That's interesting too. I mean, this is sort of a little bit of a segue. The difference between corporate security and personal security. And after the Heartbleed incident happened and that SSL bug happened, all of these companies sent out emails telling their users, don't share, don't use the same passwords across different systems. Some folks send out messages saying that, you don't need to reset your password because we're secure. And I know some companies got criticism for that because, what's your take on it in terms of password safety across different systems?
So there's all these funny memes that say, your password has to be 12 characters long plus your first arm, your left leg, your firstborn with a drop of blood. I mean, it can be. I understand that we live in a world where your identity on the online systems are very important, and I'm all for using solutions like the LastPass password manager. I have a system of creating passwords in my head, and that's because I've been in environments where I need to change my password every 30 days or every 90 days. So I've come up with a system that works for me. But having your standard home user create a different password for their Facebook, their Yahoo, their LinkedIn, their Twitter, their mail system, it can be overwhelming and it can be sort of scary. So I'm all for people leveraging like solutions like LastPass Manager or other password management solutions, so that at least they can get randomly generated passwords that are secure strength, and some of these solutions can actually store them for you and just recall them when you visit the site. I'm for the best practice, and always change your password. If you feel that something could be up, go ahead and change the password, because it's you'd be surprised how people are very attached to their accounts, and when they can't recover their internet identity, it can be frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, even as a IT professional, I still can find it kind of difficult sometimes to keep up with all the passwords. So I have to utilize something like LastPass. What's another? Is it one called KeePass? KeePass?
Yeah, I think you're right. There's another one called KeePass also, I believe.
Yeah, and there's somebody just sent me. It seemed like more like a type of more like a SaaS solution. It was I can't remember the name of it, but it was more like an online password solution. I can't think of the name. I have to find out. My friend Ronnie Hash actually sent me something probably some months ago about another solution that his team uses that actually looked pretty slick. I can't remember. I'll put it in the show notes once on. But let's move on. Let's talk about user data, and a lot of these vulnerabilities that you hear are exposing user data. You got the Target incident. People get hacked left and right almost pretty much every day. So user data is always a concern when it comes to security. So as companies are increasingly more responsible for tons of user data, talk about some of the challenges that they might face in protecting the data and some of the challenges that you face as an IT security professional.
So I think one of the primary things is that an organization, have they quantified and identified what their data means to them? What's their valuable data? And each sector is different. Of course, healthcare data, PII, and all the HIPAA-related high-tech act that's been passed to sort of address that realm of data. And then you have your, various social media companies and the data that they possess. You have your cloud emails. You have even your cloud storages, just like your Dropbox and Box and Google Drive type thing. So the concept of data living, let's say, internally in your organization, it has sort of morphed into this concept of data living anywhere. And as an organization, you may have to come up with a risk assessment model or a strategy or guidelines that sort of help your end users understand, okay, what data is allowed to, quote unquote, leave your perimeter, what data, quote unquote, is allowed to be stored in third-party systems, and what level of trust and assessment has been performed with that particular vendor or solution to sort of store that data. So I think the biggest challenge here is that as the ubiquitous of having your data on your laptop, your phone, a tablet, your stationary PC or Mac, it's the ability to pick up any device and have that data be seamlessly available for you to use. No longer are the days where I have to go to, quote unquote, the office physically to go do work. I mean, I could be on the beach on an 8-inch tablet, remote in, do my work, and be none the wiser. So it's creating the policies and standards from a security practices to not say no. It's not like we always say, oh, you guys are the no people. No, we're not the no people. We're just trying to, well, sometimes we are the no people, but we're trying to do the organization's best due diligence to provide the service in the most secure fashion possible and achieve, the best work for both the security practitioners and the business user / consumer.
Yeah, because you guys always run up against that concern or a situation where it's like, I want to, be secure, so I want to provide as much security as possible, but at the same time, I don't want to, you don't want to hinder people from being able to work. So it's that productivity versus security type of scenario that the security professionals run up against. So what are you guys doing? What type of things are companies doing to when it comes to like companies utilizing, especially enterprise companies, whereas before, you housed your data in your own data center. If the user needed access, they would have to VPN in or something like that in order to access their data. Rarely, did they, actually have, the data, on their computers or anything like that. So, what type of things are you all doing when you guys face people like Dropbox or even Google Drive, where they're offering these like enterprise services where people are putting data out in the cloud now?
Yeah, so once again, I think it's just reiterating the fact that a company understanding what's important to them and the risk that they're willing to take. At the end of the day, it really is just the risk appetite question. As some companies can operate wholly out of a cloud solution or a SaaS solution or a PaaS solution or infrastructure as a service solution. So it really boils down to, has the organization done its due diligence to understand the data and prioritize what's available from, quote unquote, inside the perimeter and outside the perimeter. The challenges that are faced by all companies in this day and age is, I want to have that Gmail-like capability to do my enterprise mail. Well, what does that mean? There's people that love Outlook, and some things just work well with the native Outlook client on your system that may not transfer to Gmail. There's a usability impact. There's a security technical impact that has to be reviewed. And just understanding those risks and then presenting it forward to your stakeholders and understand, okay, this is where we're at, and a decision has to be made off of this information. And that's sort of the first step. I mean, some companies have great maturity and they're at that point. Some companies are just finding their way as they go through this. It's like, okay, well, they want cloud storage solution. What does that mean? Mm-hmm. Well, they have Box and Dropbox and Google Drive. So what does that mean for our data to be out there, and encryption of that data and things of that nature? So it's you sort of have to take a step back and really try to address, what are we trying to solve here, and how comfortable are we with our data being in these particular areas.
So and with that, I can definitely see. But how do companies kind of address, I guess, unauthorized, maybe copying the data out onto something like Dropbox? Like, are there tools in place, or a company can kind of find out, like, hey, this was some information that we didn't want to be taken out of our control, out of our center, and are there tools out there that can detect things like that?
So there are tools. So I would say, like, in particular, like the cloud security monitoring space is relatively, I wouldn't say new field, where it's growing, and there's companies out there that are essentially just doing API calls to your various Box, Dropbox, Google Drive, et cetera, type of platforms, and using the native application, just determining what's allowed, what file movement has been made. Some vendors are providing, I say, DLP light solutions, data loss prevention type of systems in the cloud. There's, depending on how you implement some of these solutions, they require like an on-premise, essentially gateway solution where all the traffic is routed to, so they can do the deep inspection of the content. And then some of them are more lightweight, for like the API type of solution. So it depends on like the level of risk that the company is willing to take, and what solutions they're willing to implement that does not impact the end user's ability to still be a productive employee.
Yeah, and I guess that whole thing it becomes even tougher when when people start bringing in flash drives, and I guess there's ways to mitigate or get around a solution like that. Just with a flash drive, like, hey, this. I can just plug my flash drive right into my computer, and as long as my laptop is connected to a network share or something like that, I can get data in and out. So it's definitely definitely challenges.
Yeah, like I always.
It's a big challenge, and I also like to kind of dovetail that into the opportunity for people to start new companies to solve some of these problems. I mean, we really just scratched the surface on the topic of corporate security, and sort of end user, basic user security, and there's still a lot of holes that need to be closed. And I just think of them as perfect business opportunities for people to come in and solve a problem and start a new business.
I definitely agree on that. And just like I always tell, the concept of red teaming that are attacking teams on your network, and then you have like teams that are called like blue defenders that sort of are responsible for the integrity of the network at large. And the mindset is, if you're a blue defender of the network, you have to know everything to some degree. You have to understand how the network works, how the applications integrate with each other. Someone who's attacking your network only has to be right once, or only has to have that one individual click that wrong fish link or that wrong suspected URL, and they could be, one step closer into getting into your network. So it's an obstacle that challenges me every day. So I love the ability to sort of sit there and say, okay, how would I defend against this, and what things do we need to have in place to either secure, monitor, detect these types of attack vectors? So it's like I said, it's a very dynamic field. It's a very interesting space, and I encourage everyone to take a look at it.
Hey, Charles, can you just quickly do a recap on that, the red team, blue team, black team, white team security concept, just so our listeners can get a baseline on what that means?
Yeah, so normally the red team are your penetration testers. It can range from network penetration, web app pen testing, OS. So that's normally what they call the red team. The blue team.
Pen testing is people who are trying to get into your system and break it and get at your data, right?
Yeah, or whether that be through the mobile app, web app, the actual OS flaw, exploiting an OS flaw itself, or it can even be as simple as a targeted spearfish email. So there's multiple vectors that they can use. The term blue team, or you may hear it sometimes referred to as blue/green in some environments, are the individuals that are responsible for the assurance of the enterprise and the integrity in developing the detection, monitoring, or guidance to sort of fix various flaws in the configuration, whether it's just, from an OS perspective, making sure individuals are not running as admin, or a network security where you need to close holes in the firewall and things of that nature. White hat are responsible hackers who do proper disclosure of vulnerabilities to companies. And then also you have this thing called gray hat, which I think is like a mixed area. I'm not too familiar with the gray hat area. And then black hat, don't quote me on this one. I think that's where they're more of the aggressive attackers. And in addition, it's also known as the famous conference.
Cool. Cool. So, I think we went through a lot of different things. I feel like we just scratched the surface. I mean, really, it's such a huge industry. I mean, we could have an entire show just about PCI and compliance alone around credit card and e-commerce security. We could have an entire hour-long podcast, just about HIPAA compliance and I mean, there's so many different certifications that are out there around security that, the awareness, knowledge of these certifications and knowledge of these different levels of compliance can make you incredibly attractive on your resume from a LinkedIn standpoint to recruiters. So I just want to extend an invite to you, Charles, to come back on our show to talk about any of those other topics in more detail, and also invite your security friends along as well if they're privy to other areas that you would rather not go into. I just want to make sure I put that invite out there because this is such an important topic, and I would really love to see it continue on our Big Tech Talk.
Thank you I appreciate the offer and invitation. I look forward to coming back and talking about other things because, like I said, with all the people developing code, there's always people looking to break it. So,
yeah, definitely. I mean, we haven't even talked about, in depth about pen testing. We haven't even talked about in depth about malware analysis, and so it'd be definitely great to have you back, and we can dive deeper into those topics. But before we get out of here. And before we get into our lightning round, we're going to do a lightning round today. We didn't do one last time. But I want to ask you a question about certifications and because I know quite a few security guys, and I go to one or two security conferences a year. The one I usually frequent is DerbyCon in Louisville, Kentucky. Which was started probably about 2 or 3 years ago by this guy, Adrian Crenshaw, I think, him and his colleagues. And he has a security site called Iron Geek. So, but I noticed that, a lot of people who are some of the people that I've met that are in security actually don't hold a degree. They don't hold any certifications or anything like that. And they're just, really these, security and technology hobbyists that really just have a deep passion for security. But for people that are looking to get into security and might think about some certifications, what are some of the certifications out there, or some of the common ones that people can look into?
So I think in the security space, this has always been like a real yes or no type of thing, or back and forth, because I don't believe there's any right answer, because sometimes it depends on the individuals how they learn. Some individuals, they just pick up a topic and they get it. And some individuals need the construct of the certification or the training that's involved in the certification to sort of, reach the point of mastery and achieving the certification. So, I mean, I would say one certification that's really interested me that I'm looking to pursue is the OCSP. I can't remember what it stands for off the top of my head, but it's part of the Offensive Security Platform. I know in the government space, the CISSP is still big there. And then all the related SAN certifications. They have various tracks from the management track to incident response track to wireless pen testing. So the SANS, they offer a great certification platform for hobbyists or any individual that's looking to just say, hey, what is this about? It's a great entryway to get in there. And like you said, technology hobbyists, if you just have an inkling or desire, Google it up, and then, there's all types of meetups that exist in various cities that are willing to sort of just share the knowledge. There's nothing about hoarding information in this field. We're really about sharing things and teaching people the best ways to do things. So it's various amount of degrees, the various amount of certifications that are available, training sessions, meetups. There's all types of ways to learn within the information security space.
Nice. I do want to throw out there that the certified ethical hacker certification is one that I've heard about. Also, I think it's like certified forensics investigator or something like that. There's another one that along the same lines in the security world. Let me see. So we didn't do a lightning round with our last guest. They kind of didn't want us to do it because some of the things some of the topics in there. It's not really anything controversial, but I guess they feel comfortable with some of what's saying. But we're going to do a lightning round here before we get out of here. So real quick, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions. Just like right. I'll say, this or that, and you say your answer. All right. Okay. So, private cloud or public cloud?
Private cloud.
Great. Yeah, I should have expected that. All right. Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
Good answer. STEM or STEAM?
STEM.
All right. iOS or Android?
Android.
Woohoo! Doing pretty good. Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Wars.
You're a Star Wars fan? I have to deduct points for that, but all right, last one. Dr. Dre or Doctor Who?
Oh man.
This is the best one of all of them.
I gotta go with Dr. Dre. I'm sorry. I love music, so I gotta go with Dr. Dre.
You know where your loyalties lie.
That's pretty good, though. That's pretty good. All except for the Star Wars one, but I'll let you pass with that one. So I think that's it for us tonight. I do want to mention our next 2 upcoming podcasts. Let me see. We have one with who's the one in 2 weeks? Are you really?
Oh, we're going to have Leah McGowan Hare from Salesforce.com on here in 2 weeks. She's an incredible master trainer in Apex and Visual Force on the Salesforce platform, creating developers all across the world. So excited to have her on. She's going to be great. Yeah.
So I'm looking at her bio. So she's a consultant, developer, manager, technical trainer. She's worked in a variety of roles. Dreamforce top trainer since 2009. So that's going to be. Did she participate? Yeah. So she participates with White Girls Code as well. Girls of Code.
Yeah. Leah is phenomenal. And
she's a fitness buff, so good to get into some good stuff there. And then next week, we're actually going to have our Founders Hour. I think it's going to be on the 19th, where we're going to talk to, who are we going to talk to? Lanice Block. And she is the founder of the Digital Empowerment Academy, which is a digital literacy initiative that seeks to enable teams to become savvy creators of technology as well as users. So we're going to be talking to her. We're going to be talking about using coding as a tool to engage and digital kinship. And digital kinship is an idea as defined as youth using digital applications to create what is important to them and ensure those with those who are important to them. Did I say that twice? Sound like it, but yeah. So the next 2 upcoming podcasts are going to be pretty great. So tune in for that. That's going to be the one with Lanice Block is going to be next week on the 19th, and then the one with Leah is going to be on the 26th, I think. Yeah, 26th. So tune in for those, same bat time, same bat channel, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Time. And I think that is all for us tonight. And I definitely want to say thank you to Charles for joining us here tonight, having a great podcast.
Thank you guys. And like I say, you guys are doing an awesome job here for giving people a platform to talk about the things that they enjoy. So thank you guys.
Thanks for joining us, Charles. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, so before you get out of here, go ahead and if you got like any Twitter handles or if anybody wants to, you have a blog like that, go ahead and tell the users how to get in contact with you or follow you.
So my Twitter handle is basically at Charles_Nwatu. That's the best way to get a hold of me. And just reach out. I'm always looking forward to volunteering, sharing my knowledge, and learning new things from new people. So reach out to me.
Excellent, excellent. And before we go, I'm going to say, your daughter. You say it's your daughter. I'm going to send you this Learn the Program with Scratch book. I know you probably already got it on the pad, but you have a book. So I'll get your address and everything before we jump off of here. And I'm going to send you this book because I've had this book for I don't know. O'Reilly sent me these books, and I've been trying to find something to do with them. So, your daughter is into programming. She's into Scratch. So I'm going to send you a book for how to program with Scratch.
Thanks, Greg. That gives us something for the summer to do. So awesome. Thank you.
Oh, definitely. So that is all for us today here tonight on the Big Tech Talk. And tune in next time. And thanks a lot for listening.